The build I'm covering in this video I originally made like 5 months ago when Lightfall came out, and in that video I showed off Handheld Supernova and how hard it hits with Veritys Brow dealing double the base damage. But in today's build, I'm also going to be going over another exotic, so you can basically chain these grenades back to back. As long as you make enough orbs of power, you're going to have infinite grenades, and the mods in the build are also going to be updated so that we can use some of the newer mods that weren't around when I first made the build. For anyone who hasn't used it before, you can convert your magnetic grenade into a handheld supernova using Chaos Accelerant on Void. This turns it into a short-range blast, which does a ton of damage, even in underpower content, which I was using for the gameplay in this video, where all of the majors are getting one-shots, and even yellow bars are taking a good amount of damage. Veritys Brow takes this damage up even higher while also buffing your regen slightly, but running with Contraverse Hold makes the ability cycle wild. We usually get half our grenade back through kickstart mods, and the regen from Contras gives us another 50%. Even if you don't have armor charges for your grenade kickstart mods as well, the base amount we get back plus Devour energy plus mods like Bomber and Innervation easily refund our grenade. So with this build, you basically have two ways of playing. The first focusing on high damage output to single targets when running Verities, and then the other for an ability spam add clear cycle with Contraverse Hold. Whichever way you lean, you also still get the best benefits of Void. We have Devour, which gives full health and full shield on every kill, along with grenade energy. Our grenades weaken enemies, so that's another bump in damage and the ability to debuff for our team. And then we also get volatile rounds for all our Void weapons whenever we kill an enemy with a grenade. Before we hop into the build and what you guys should be running, if you do end up enjoying the video, make sure to drop a quick like and sub down below. It's completely free, it takes 2 seconds, and it helps me out a ton. Starting things off with the build, I wanted to cover our 2 exotics that we're running with the build. We're obviously going over half the gameplay with Contraverse Hold and then half the gameplay with Veritys Brow. Up first, I'm running Veritys Brow. This is going to be for that harder hitting grenade build. With this, you can see that energy weapon kills are going to boost our grenade damage. This is going to be 20% per stack, and we do need to get energy kills that match our subclass type. So we need to get Void kills since we're on Void Walker, which we can do with something like Funnel Web. I really like using Unforgiven, or if you really want to get those kills up quickly and go from like 0 all the way up to 5 stacks, which is your max, you could use something like Deafening Whisper. Once we get all the way up to 5 stacks, that is the max, as I said, which is a 100% damage increase. And then also with this, with each stack that you're getting, you do also get some increased grenade regen. So it's not like we have terrible regen with this. We get good regen, good damage. It's just not as good of regen as Contraverse holds. And then obviously, if you are running this setup with Contraverse Hold, you don't really need an energy void weapon if you don't want, but we do have volatile rounds with the build, so I still recommend running something like Funnel Web. And then looking at Contras with this, when we charge up our grenade, which we're always doing with this build, we then hit enemies and we're getting energy returns straight back. The energy returns are like 2000% for 1.75 seconds. It comes out so that with Supernova, you're basically getting half of your grenade straight back each and every time. And then obviously we're using mods to get the other half back very quickly. So we can pretty much chain infinite grenades with this. We just aren't dealing double damage. Within the Void Walker subclass, your super isn't really going to matter. You can rotate however you want. I tend to use Cataclysm for just high burst damage against things like champions. If I'm doing boss damage, I'll run Vortex. And if you do need the ad clear, Nova Warp is pretty solid. After that, we are running Child of the Old Gods. I think Child of the Old Gods is a better aspect when on Healing Rift, so I prefer running Healing Rift, even though we don't really need the healing. Because we have Devour, this just works better with our aspect. And then after that, for our last main ability, obviously we're running Magnetic Grenades, and these are going to get converted into that Handheld Supernova. Next up with the build, we have 2 aspects. First and foremost, we're running Chaos Accelerant. With this, we can hold in our grenade depending on the grenade we're using and make it more effective. In the case of magnetic grenades, that is what releases that short-range Void Blast, which is another way of saying the Handheld Supernova ability. You shoot out like 7 projectiles. It does a ton of damage up close. It does also seek out enemies, but it has like a 5 to 10 meter range, so you do need to use this in pretty close proximity. Second to this, we are then running Child of the Old Gods. With this, anytime we place down our Rift, we create a Void Soul, and then we can shoot it at an enemy. The Void Soul will travel and attach to their location, dealing damage and weakening any enemy in its AoE. whenever we're using Healing Rift with this build, as we're dealing damage with the Void Soul, we're getting grenade and melee energy straight back. So that's why I prefer Healing Rift as compared to Empowering. And then on top of that, anything that dies while connected to the Void Soul, whether the Void Soul gets the kill through damaging the enemy, or if we just get the kill through an ability or a weapon final blow, that gives us class ability energy straight back. So with Healing Rift and Child of the Old Gods, we can easily cycle all 3 of our abilities. Lastly, when it comes to fragments, Echo of Undermining is fantastic with grenade builds. This is going to allow them to weaken targets. Weaken is a 15% debuff, so our grenades deal 15% more damage, and we can then use this against tankier enemies or bosses so that we're dealing more damage to them as well. Echo of Starvation is how we're getting Devour on the build. Picking up a Void Breach or an Orb of Power is then going to grant us Devour. And then with Devour, as most people know, kills are going to give full health and full shield. It's going to then extend that Devour timer, so we can maintain this infinitely as long as we keep getting kills. And then most importantly to this build, we are also getting grenade energy depending on the tier of enemy we're killing for each kill that we get while Devour is active. Echo of Instability is also super good with grenade-based builds on Void. With this, grenade kills are going to grant volatile rounds for our Void weapons for 10 seconds. This is especially good for like the mid-game play for builds, especially with like Veritys Brow. As we're getting those grenade kills, if we don't have our grenade ready to go right away, we can then use like Devour plus volatile rounds to effectively add clear and then get more grenade energy, build up stacks of death throws very quickly, and then get our next nade out. And then lastly, I like running Echo of Harvest so that defeating weakened targets creates an Orb of Power and a Void Breach. This allows us to proc Devour more consistently, feed directly into our mods, and just make the build better all around. Finally, guys, on screen right now are all the mods running with the build. You can pause the video, apply them yourself in game. As always, there will be a dim link below if you want to click that and apply it yourself. Or you can always check out the info over at Mobalytics for more build details and why we're using each mod specifically. On my helmet, very simply, I have a Void Siphon mod. We're typically using a Void weapon with the build to add clear whenever we get a chance. So that's just extra orbs of power we can use. And then obviously it's a grenade-based build, so Ashes to Assets gives increased super energy on grenade kills, so we get our super a little bit quicker. On our gauntlets, the mods are actually very important. Double Grenade Kickstart is going to consume all the armor charge stacks that we have whenever we use our grenade and directly convert that into energy for our next grenade. With 2 of these on, plus up to 4 armor charge stacks, that is 42.5% of our grenade that we're getting straight back. And then to actually generate orbs of power with grenade final blows, we have on firepower. On my chest, I tend to run 3 copies of damage resistance mods. With this build, to get increased grenade energy back, I do also have 1 copy of Charged Up. This takes us from 3 armor charge stacks at max up to 4 for a little bit extra grenade energy back with those grenade kickstart mods. On my legs, I do have 1 copy of Installation for class energy and then Innervation for grenade energy per orb of power we pick up. And then obviously to get more armor charge stacks more consistently, we do have stacks on stacks. So picking up an orb of power now gives 2 armor charge stacks rather than the base 1. And then finally on my class item, I have Bomber. This is 20% of my grenade every time I place my class ability down. I have Reaper, so that using my class ability makes my next weapon final blow spawn an extra orb of power. And then obviously new compared to the last version of the build is Powerful Attraction, so that placing down my Rift collects all orbs of power nearby. It's then going to trigger things like my orb mods on my legs, like Installation and Innervation. It's going to work with stacks on stacks, and then obviously that's directly feeding into Grenade Kickstart so that we get more armor charge stacks as we pick those orbs up. After playing around with both exotics this season, my thoughts are that Contraverse Hold are a better exotic to run. Obviously the 2 do offer different playstyles, but in endgame content, I don't think double the grenade damage is really needed. Majors die no matter what, so in most cases that extra damage would only be for bosses or champions, and it wouldn't one-shot them either, so I feel like having the regen is just better from Contras, plus you don't need to micromanage death throw stacks. Also, contrary to popular belief, Handheld Supernova can hit harder than a fully charged Vortex Grenade. As you can see here, most of the time, the extra damage from Echo of Undermining seems to scale weird and adds extra damage to Handheld Supernova. Let me know your thoughts between the 2 and try this out in some underpower content, and let me know if you guys enjoy the playstyle. I do also stream a bunch over on my Twitch. We're currently doing Garden of Salvation speedruns, running 3-3, where you do 2 encounters at once. It's pretty cool, so if you guys ever want to watch live, a link to my Twitch is in the description down below. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.